Hare Krishna. Good evening. I'm not sure that it's 6:01, really? 22? I didn't realize that was a date, but here we are. We're reading Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, text 18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We offer our humble obeisances to Vyasadeva, the compiler of this beautiful philosophy that we will be studying tonight. So, yes, Bhagavad Gita as it is, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Like I said, chapter 6, text 18. And I'm going to try to read it and see what happens. Yada vinyatam etaham.
Yada viniyatam chitam.
Atmane eva tasyate.
Atmanyeva vatistate.
Nispura sarvakam ebhyo.
Nispriya sarvakamebhyo.
Yukta iti yachate tada.
Yukta ityuchate tada.
I'm going to read the word for word now. Maybe you could recite it back. Yuda.
Yada.
When. Vinyatam.
Viniyatam.
Particularly disciplined.
But particularly disciplined.
Chittam.
Chittam.
The mind and its activities.
The mind and its activities.
Atmani.
Atmani.
In the transcendence.
In the transcendence.
Eva.
Eva.
Certainly.
Certainly.
Atyastate.
Avatistate.
Become situated.
Become situated.
Nispura.
Nispriha.
Devoid of.
Devoid of.
Sarva.
Sarva.
All kinds of.
All kinds of.
Kam ebhya.
Kamebhya.
Material desires.
Material desire.
Yukta.
Yukta.
Well situated in yoga.
Well situated in yoga.
Iti.
Iti.
Thus.
Thus.
Yuchate.
Yuchate.
Is said to be.
Is said to be.
Tada.
Tada.
At that time.
At that time.
Translation. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to have attained yoga. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The activities of the yogi are distinguished from those of an ordinary person by his characteristic cessation from all kinds of material desires, of which sex is the chief. A perfect yogi is so well disciplined in the activities of the mind that he can no longer be described by any kind of material desire. This perfectional stage can automatically be attained by persons in Krishna consciousness, as is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.18 through 20. King Ambrastya first of all engaged his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna. Then one after another he engaged his words in describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, his hands in mopping the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing of the activities of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the transcendental forms of the Lord, his body in touching the bodies of the devotees, his sense of smell and smelling the scents of the lotus flower offered to the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaf offered at the lotus feet of the Lord, his legs in going to places of pilgrimage and the temple of the Lord, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in executing the mission of the Lord. All these transcendental activities are quite befitting a pure devotee. This transcendental stage may be inexpressible subjectively by the followers of the impersonalist path, but it becomes very easy and practical for persons in Krishna consciousness, as is apparent in the above description of the engagements of Maharaj Ambrosya. Unless the mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord by constant remembrance, such transcendental engagements are not practical. In the devotional service of the Lord, therefore, these prescribed activities are called archana, or engaging all the senses in the service of the Lord. The senses and the mind require engagement. Simply abnegation is not practical. Therefore, for people in general, especially those who are not in the renounced order of life, transcendental engagement of the senses and the mind, as described, is the perfect process for transcendental achievement, which is called yukta in the Bhagavad Gita. Namo Om Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pacharni Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatan. Hey. So, this particular verse I kind of picked, I was connecting to suffering and then anxiety, and for some reason it led me, I had a dream, and it was, the theme was remembrance. I was like kind of in a like anxious, suffering kind of state, and then I had this, I was like, that's what I'm going to give a class on, suffering, anxiety. And I read a few verses, and for some reason it just, I was like, I'm not getting it right. It didn't feel like 100% for me. And then that night, it was about that night or so, or a few nights after, because I started looking at verses, I don't know, 4 days ago. And I had a dream, and the theme of the dream was like remembrance of like Krishna and my relationship with Krishna and my eternal relationship with Krishna. And so I was like, I woke up and I'm like, oh, well, remembrance, maybe that's why I'm experiencing this suffering and anxiety and I read a few verses on remembrance, and it stated exactly that theme, that, you know, we come into this suffering and anxiety because we forget our relationship with Krishna. And so that's kind of led me, and then I really appreciated this particular verse because it really was like focusing on like really engaging all the senses and the results of that, or the experience of engaging all the senses. I could think of like my own process with this Krishna conscious philosophy and giving myself to this practice. And I could see the more I gave my senses to the process, the more I engaged my senses, then I found that I was like, it was almost like this feeling of like coming home, like this is a familiar experience for me. And then that got me to think about like, okay, like, you know, our eternal, like this philosophy presents this paradigm. It's very profound that we are servants of Krishna and we are in this material world. And we forgot our relationship with Krishna. We were originally in the spiritual world with Krishna, and Krishna gives us free will. He wants us to. He wants our loving relationship out of like choice. He wants us to choose that. He doesn't want us to be robots and just like we're not independent. He doesn't want us to be independently just like serving him because we have no choice. So Krishna gives us choice, free will. My understanding is free will. And we come to the material world because of our choice that we chose. We chose to not serve Krishna. We wanted to see what it's like when we don't serve Krishna. So here we are, we're having an experience. Krishna is giving us the best possible experience that he can, because we can't completely separate from Krishna. It's impossible. It's not even possible. So he's giving us this experience as separate as he possibly can for us to try to enjoy without him, or try to enjoy on our own, and give ourselves to the experiment of like what happens when we try to serve ourselves. And so with that experience, we come into this material world, and then we kind of get covered up. Our consciousness gets covered. We get covered with Maya, and we believe that we don't even remember our relationship with Krishna anymore. We're like in this material world, and there's all these like paradigms and all these like, you know, I'm this body, you know, different ways that you could identify with like, well, I'm not this body, but I'm a spirit soul and I can go anywhere in the universe and be free. And, you know, there's all these different like ways I can become a demigod, and how amazing that would be, you know. So there's all these different ways that we can, you know, still be under illusion and not remember our eternal relationship with Krishna. And so I'm, you know, wanted to connect to this particular verse again because of this process is so nice. Srila Prabhupada is giving us like, you know, just hearing and chanting and deity worship and doing service at the temple. I mean, I don't personally live at a temple, but I've heard, you know, from a lot of devotees that have, you know, lived in temple life, and there's so much engaging all the time, and so much remembrance all the time, seeing the deities all the time, serving the deities, going out and doing book distributing and serving prasadam and the kirtan and just the classes, like, so that it's like a full program that individuals have the opportunity to plug into, you know, associating at a, you know, temple. Now me personally, you know, I'm like coming into Krishna consciousness through family life, which for me, it was like a little bit, you know, I'm still like going through my process of like, you know, I have my altar, you know, I'm like, I think of like my house is Krishna's temple, but I still like, you know, it can, like, a lot of times I kind of forget. I'm coming from like, you know, I'm separate from Krishna and I don't know what I'm doing in this world. I'm trying to figure out what the meaning of life is. And I'm, you know, kind of, that's where I'm coming from. And then I'm making contact to this Krishna conscious philosophy, and I'm like giving myself to the process, and I'm experiencing, like I shared earlier, this feeling of like something familiar about this, and something that makes me feel like home. As addition to that, like Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, that like so kindly brought this philosophy to the West for me to make contact with at this point. And, a few, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was for me, like without Srila Prabhupada, like, I wouldn't have came in contact with it at this point in place in history for myself. And so there's also this, so much love and affection that I feel for Srila Prabhupada and the service that he provided for the West and then the world. The Krishna conscious movement just kind of went all over the planet after it came to the United States. But thinking about like my own experience of Srila Prabhupada, and like always feeling like I feel so fortunate that I have such a heartfelt spiritual father. Like I really see him as my father, and it's just all I feel from him is just love, like pure love, that he's just giving freely to the world. But for myself, back to this particular verse, I could see like, engaging in the activities, like, because I get in and out, like I was saying before, I get in and out of remembering, even though like, my home is like my temple, and I do my morning worship and appreciation. I do my chanting process every day. But there's still times when I'm like forgetting that, I can kind of get lost in, I go to work, I do construction, and, fortunately I've been working for some devotees lately, so I'm listening to Srila Prabhupada more often. They're actually in favor of it, so I'm not disturbing them in any way, like keeping it down low. I can blast it really loud so I can hear it over like the nail guns and stuff. So that's been very special recently. But I'm kind of looking at like recently I've been looking at my own life, and like really seeing that this vehicle I have this vehicle, and I know that like I'm kind of seeing that like I have I'm like driving my vehicle's a bus, and I'm driving it like a sports car, and it's like it's not really working. I'm just trying to use an analogy where I'm like kind of connecting to like, okay, I have this body, I have this psychophysical nature, and I want to use it like for like service. I want to use it for service for Srila Prabhupada and serve Krishna. I just feel like I haven't really been using it in its like optimal like potential or optimal way. I feel like there's a bigger role that I know that I could be playing in my life, in my service. And so, I've kind of been getting a little bit lost in like the vehicle, and kind of like, okay, I want to get clear, because I see other individuals, other even devotees that are just like, they go after these really exciting professions, and, that's their service. And I'm like, well, I could look at, construction work. Yeah, I'm good at it. I care, but is that really like, do I really feel enlivened by it or enthused by it? So I'm like, I've kind of been in that question. And I know, Mother Malini, I expressed to you that I joined a men's group to, really help men like, raise up a level, or like really like get in tune to like who they really are, and maybe like pursue a more fulfilling purpose, like as far as Lakshmi goes, and use their vehicle to serve, in a more I don't know, I guess it's like what I'm looking for is to wake up and really feel like excitement and curiosity and wonder. I mean, I have that experience with bhakti yoga, like my Krishna consciousness, but not having that experience with my actual like, thing that I do for a living. It's not really, I feel like there's parts of me like that, my work is isolating, and I feel like, even though I feel like an introverted person, like I really feel like I really love connecting with people, in a very intimate, way, a deep way. And I'm seeing like, if I were doing a type of work that involved more people around more often, then I could have those experiences more. And, maybe we could talk about philosophy more of this Krishna consciousness. And so that's exciting to me to have more opportunity in that context. But just a few weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I shared with you, we did Sankirtan, and that was a new experience for me to connect with a lot of people in that context. So I feel like I can fulfill that experience with that. But at the same time, I feel like there's parts of myself, my creative energy, and even like I said, working with people that but during that process of like kind of focusing on my vehicle, I don't know, I feel like I was getting a little bit like, when I listened to Srila Prabhupada during the day, I wasn't hearing as much. It was interesting because I was like noticing that I'm not like, I'd come home and only hear one thing that was like really touched me that day. Whereas like before, when I wasn't like so focused on my vehicle, that I was hearing more throughout the day, and I'd come home with like 4 or 5 like really profound like, points that I was appreciating that Srila Prabhupada mentioned that day. And then, like I said, so I'm kind of like trying to figure out how to navigate, like, how do I like, really look at my vehicle and like really, get clear on like, what is my vehicle really used for in this life, in service and acquiring Lakshmi. At the same time, not be so like caught up in the vehicle that it's like taking me away. And that's why this particular verse, I had to reconnect. I'm like, because I was starting to feel like stress and anxiety. I'm like, and then remembering, it's like, oh yeah, I'm like, the bigger picture here is Krishna consciousness. It's not necessarily this, figuring out like how to optimize my vehicle and use it, in my life. So anyway, so that kind of, so putting this class together, and it really helped me kind of reconnect, like, and feel grounded again, like in my process with bhakti yoga and Krishna consciousness. And I'm feeling more like, okay, I can look at the vehicle. I can, pay attention to that. I know that I need to, because there's parts of me that like, I don't feel satisfied. There's like, I can feel it, but I mean, my body hurts and I'm bored. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Those two things right there. So, I'm like, I know I can do other work. I don't know what that is. I'm kind of playing with, some art classes, and then some talk therapy of some sort. I don't know what that really looks like with people. So yeah, I guess that's kind of, I feel like I might be at the end of what I originally wanted to talk about. I could pause there if you would like to share, or do you have a question or like to share anything?
Thank you for your class. I really like the beginning of the class when you establish the absolute truth of our position, of where we are and what it's all about, and Krishna's benevolence say, okay, go play. but at the same time, we cannot go that far. They go play, it's like the parents say, go play, and they own the land around. And the children, well, they're always in the land of the father, but they think they are very independent and they are doing their own thing.
Yeah.
So I really like that. And then, looking at, you think that you have a sports car, but in fact you have a bus, you're driving a bus. So like, that's interesting. It would be interesting to see, how come you're thinking it's a sport car and how come you think it's a bus. and then I appreciate that, because if we are too focused on a vehicle, even if it's for realizing the vehicle, it's still we are focusing on something material. And then you could see, like, experientially, by focusing on the material, on the vehicle, even so you were focusing with the aim of more engaging in more fulfilling services, still you could see that your consciousness was not as absorbed in hearing Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master, as he used to be when you were like just doing what you do and listening. So that's interesting too. It's interesting too. And then, so focusing on the vehicle, how much that is self-realization, how much that is not self-realization, how much that is help us to come closer to Krishna, and how much that is not, because we are kind of maybe preventing ourselves to hear the guidance of Super Soul. Like Arjuna was really thinking he needs to go to the forest. That's according to psychophysical nature, according to his mind, not his vehicle, but according to his morality, his compassion, according to his soft-heartedness. What made sense is like, according to who I am, I'm going to go to the forest. But then Krishna, with, for us, Super Soul, Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra said, no, I want you to fight. Yeah, so that's what's coming up, like questions about, about the vehicle, about the focus there, about, it's inspiring to hear your experience by forgetting the Krishna elements and focusing just like, okay, I need to know what I'm supposed to do and where I'm supposed to go with this vehicle, how, like, you were not able to hear as much.
Yeah, I could see how I was kind of getting lost in material consciousness and the effect that it was having on me. But I appreciate you bringing to light, like, Arjuna's, experience with Krishna on the battlefield, and him like focusing on, well, my vehicle is like telling me I need to go into the woods and meditate, and then the guidance that he was receiving from Krishna was different than that. And so I'm like kind of hearing like what would my experience be like as far as like my vehicle goes if I was connecting more to guidance from Super Soul. Like, that's what I was hearing, like, and receiving direction there. Instead of trying to figure it out on my own.
And it's interesting that, okay, maybe the work that you're doing is boring and your body is hurting, but you also see that with that work, you were really capable of really deeply hearing. So it's really interesting. It's, I'm thinking of my situation, and I'm like you, I'm in transition. I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore. I just like, I went through some life transformation, and I'm just like, okay, waiting for guidance, waiting for command. What do you want me to do, Krishna? And so. And at the same time, we want to understand our vehicle. We want to know our vehicle, but you can see maybe you went so far in that direction that you took Krishna out of the picture?
Yeah, it was kind of happening, and indirectly, I didn't really realize that's where it was going until I started suffering more and had anxiety more. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, why am I experiencing this? Like, and I was like, oh, I forgot about what it, it was more like I was kind of going through motions each day. Oh, I'm chanting my rounds. I'm doing my morning program, where, appreciating, worshiping deities. But like at the same time, like, when I was just in my construction thing, I wasn't thinking about my vehicle at all. I was just like, oh, just like hearing and like, just reconnecting, remembering, like, okay, like giving myself, to this process and this philosophy. And yeah. And you were expressing like, oh, you've gone through transformation. Your vehicle is different than it was before, and you're like, not really clear, like what am I supposed to be doing right now? But it sounds like you're in the question and giving yourself to hear guidance from Srila Prabhupada, from Krishna, to to take you where you're going next. I mean, it sounds like, but I mean, I know a little bit about you personally, and you're headed, to do some service for a month, so that's I would assume you got that guidance from Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, to go there and do that. So that's where your vehicle is. That's where you're taking your vehicle. Your vehicle's taking you there. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah. So yeah, I'm really, because the men's group that I'm a part of, it's really, I think it's great what they're doing. They're really helping men like step out of the mode of ignorance and passion and connect to the mode of goodness. It seems like that's the majority of reason why most men are there. This is what I'm seeing from the majority of the men and what they're looking for. It's very, I mean, they want the mode of goodness, and they want to, they're kind of in material consciousness, most of them, and that is fine. Like I think it's great. Like they're, really, like the organization is really helping people, create a really, it's just really great, like, life for them, moving into integrity and being honest with their relationships with their partners, and, helping them be more present for them and hear from them. So it's really great. At the same time, it seems like there's opportunity to move into service, because it's like I'm in the beginning stages. And like later on down the road, they get into like, what is your contribution and what is your in growth and service to your creator, your higher power. So they go into that. It's just where I'm at right now is like, I'm at the beginning with everybody else that seems like, I guess they're at the beginning, but I have this overall, like, I'm waiting. I'm like, I'm ready to get into like, what is my, I want to know like how I can serve Srila Prabhupada and how I can serve Krishna, like to my best ability with this vehicle that I have. And that's why I'm here. Whereas like most men that I'm seeing, they want to not be in divorce anymore. They just want to, have a happy, healthy, like family, so, and that's great. I think it's awesome. Like, this is what they're going for, but I feel like I'm kind of, so it's a little bit interesting for me, because I'm just like, okay, I'm ready to get to good stuff. How can I really use this vehicle? Like, show me how I can use this vehicle.
Happy marriage is the good stuff.
Oh, Damian chimed in. No, I want a happy marriage too. Did you hear what she said? She said, how come a happy marriage is not the good stuff for me? But no.
Already have it.
She's just thinking about herself.
I'm a child of God.
Oh.
Okay.
I definitely want as much sport as possible on my family life as well. Absolutely. Because it's challenging. It's so challenging. And I
Okay,
want.
so you want to you want to figure out, okay, how do I optimize this life? How I optimize this life in service to Krishna while being responsible for, being a grihastha, family life, and all that.
Yeah. I mean, my children are a big part of it too. I don't want to pass on to my kids, well, I can show you how to survive work-wise, but I can't really show you how to like do something really, really beautiful where you wake up feeling excited, enthusiastic to like serve the world at the same time serving Srila Prabhupada and serving Krishna. I want it all. I want to, maybe that's, I don't know what that's about.
You want meaning. You want more meaning to your activities, to your karma.
Yeah.
Like that. And for now, and you want to give that legacy to your children. And you're seeing like, okay, right now, the legacy I'm giving them is that, yes, they can survive. They can, make a living. They can take care of their families. They can, it's good. It's good. Better than most. And at the same time, you want to give a different legacy. You want to give a legacy of striving for Krishna, striving on every level, and being excited, like, wow, what I'm doing in the morning, and when I wake up, I'm excited to serve Srila Prabhupada, to do what I'm doing, and also contribute to my family and contribute to the world at the same time.
Yeah. I've been having trouble doing that, just doing construction work. I've been like, I feel so much gratitude for this Krishna consciousness process and my commitment and my experience with it. At the same time, I feel like what I've been doing for a living is like, it's interfering, where I'm like, my body hurts and I'm tired, and, it's like, I can see it can take away from my focus sometimes with reading and even chanting, like, so I feel like at least I'm imagining that I could, like, if I really, really like, came into some sort of work that it really like, it nurtures me more, then I'll be able to have more presence and give myself more to serving Srila Prabhupada and serving Krishna. At least that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and like I hear you that you want that fulfillment, that satisfaction, that enthusiasm for service. You have enthusiasm for sadhana. You have enthusiasm for your service to the deities. You have enthusiasm to all that, and then you want to fill the gap of your occupational duty, your occupation, and to have to create an occupation where you continue that enthusiasm, and that it's really, you feel aligned and serving your spiritual master every moment, which is not easy to, like, when you just absorb yourself in construction work, then you can hear, can hear very well. At the same time, you're not fulfilled with the work itself, and you like to be fulfilled with the work itself. Yeah. And I know, like, I know that Krishna is in our hearts. Rideshu Arjuna Tishtati. But Krishna is in our heart and is guiding our wandering. And my sense is that you do know.
Yeah.
Because often in my own situation, I can see, I do know. I don't like to know, or I'm too scared to move or whatever, but I do know. I don't remember a moment where I didn't know. I know many moments, 90% of the time, where I pretended not to know. That's for sure. Because Krishna always speaks with us. He doesn't stop one moment. He's guiding the wandering of the living entity. He's guiding our minute affairs. He's guiding our minute moment to moment, day to day decision, and also, planning and long-term vision. Just a little challenge.
Thank you. What are you pretending not to know?
I am pretending not to know things that I do know.
Hare Krishna. Well, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I don't know if it's okay to, are we closing? I guess.
We can close, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate
Srimad
you.
Bhagavad Gita ki.
Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Bye. Go, Apremanandi.
Haribol.
I'm going to stop. Hold on.